struggling single mom saw her first love at an airport, not knowing he was now a millionaire CEO. Hello everyone, today's story is about a struggling single mom who unexpectedly meets her first love at an airport, never knowing he is now a millionaire CEO. Before we begin today's story, I have a small favor to ask. Please hit ***, subscribe ***, and turn on the **** notification bell *** so you never miss our channel's new videos. It's quick, free, and the best way to support us in bringing you more dramatic stories. Your support means the world to us. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Now, let's dive into the story. Emma had always thought of herself as ordinary. She wasn't a woman of extravagant dreams or lavish fantasies. The world she lived in was filled with the quiet hum of everyday struggles, paying rent, picking up extra shifts at the diner, trying to keep her head above water. It wasn't glamorous, but it was hers. And then, there was him, David. She hadn't seen him in years, not since high school. Back then, they were young and full of hope, planning a future they never got the chance to share. Emma remembered the day she had to leave for college, the way David had held her hand, promising they would make it work. But life had other plans. She got pregnant, dropped out, and their paths diverged. He had gone on to big things, she had stayed behind. Fast forward to today, and Emma was a single mother to a bright little girl named Lily, doing her best to juggle work and motherhood. The airport was just another place where she had to rush through her day. She was there to catch a flight for a job interview in a city that seemed far too big for her. But the moment she stepped into the terminal, something felt different. It was a quiet afternoon, the kind of day where the airport felt less like a bustling hub and more like a place of fleeting moments. As she moved through the crowd, Emma's gaze was drawn to a familiar face, one she hadn't seen in what felt like forever. There, standing by the coffee kiosk, was David. The same face she had once known so well, but now it was different. His suit was sharp, the kind of designer wear she had only seen in magazines. His hair, once messy and carefree, was now neatly combed. His posture was confident, almost businesslike. But it was his eyes that caught her. Those deep brown eyes that once held so much promise now seemed distant, as though the world he had entered had changed him in ways she couldn't begin to understand. Emma stood frozen for a moment, her heart skipping a beat. She didn't approach him. Not yet. She didn't know what to say. After all these years, what could she possibly say? She took a breath and tried to move past him, but her feet felt rooted to the floor. And then, he looked up. Their eyes met for the briefest of moments, and Emma's breath caught in her throat. The recognition was instant, but it was the surprise that hit her. David smiled, a small, knowing smile. "Emma," he said softly. "Is that really you?" For a second, Emma thought she might faint. The voice was unmistakable, but the man standing before her seemed like a stranger. She had forgotten what it felt like to be around him. "David," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. The words felt foreign, awkward. She hadn't expected to see him, and she definitely hadn't expected this. It was like the years between them had disappeared, yet they had built new lives in completely different worlds. She forced a smile, trying to mask the nervousness building inside her. "It's been, 10 years?" she asked, looking him up and down, still trying to reconcile the man in front of her with the one she had once known. He chuckled, running a hand through his now perfectly styled hair. "Yeah, something like that." Emma felt a tightness in her chest, unsure of how to continue. Should she ask about his life, his family, or just let him lead the conversation? But before she could think of what to say, the voice of an airport attendant came through the loudspeakers, announcing her flight. It was time to go. She glanced at her watch, the reality of her situation sinking in. "I really should go," she said, her tone apologetic. "I've got a flight to catch." David looked at her, his expression unreadable. "Of course," he said, stepping aside to let her pass. But as she turned to walk away, something stopped her. She felt the weight of his gaze on her back, and for a moment, she couldn't help but wonder if this encounter was just a fleeting moment, or if it meant something more. Could it be that fate had brought them together again, after all these years? With a final glance, she left him standing by the coffee kiosk, her heart still racing. What had just happened? Emma couldn't stop thinking about David after that unexpected encounter at the airport. She kept replaying the moment in her mind, trying to make sense of it. The way his voice had sounded so familiar, the way his eyes locked with hers, as if time had folded back on itself and nothing had changed. But everything had changed. He was no longer the high school boy she had once known. The man she had seen at the airport was a CEO, dressed in an expensive suit with an air of confidence she had never seen before. She wondered if he remembered her the same way she remembered him. Did he think about the past, too? Did he ever wonder what could have been? But those thoughts had to be put aside. Emma had responsibilities. Lily was waiting for her at home. Her daughter was the center of her world, and everything else had to come second. The next few days went by in a blur. Emma threw herself back into her work, trying to push the thoughts of David to the back of her mind. But life had a way of making things complicated. Just as she was starting to feel like she was getting back on track, the phone rang. She didn't recognize the number, but something told her to answer. "Hello, is this Emma Brooks?" a smooth voice on the other end asked. It was David's voice. Her heart skipped a beat. "David? How did you get my number?" she asked, her voice trembling slightly. I found it through a mutual friend," he replied. "I hope that's okay." Emma didn't know what to say. Should she be upset? Or was it okay that he had gone to the trouble of finding her? She took a deep breath. "What can I do for you?" she asked, trying to keep her tone neutral. David paused for a moment, as if he was carefully choosing his words. "I've been thinking a lot about our conversation at the airport," he said finally. "And I realized that I made a mistake. I didn't have the chance to explain everything. I think we should meet again, Emma. I'd like to make it right." Emma felt a wave of emotion wash over her. It had been years since she had heard from him, and now he was calling, asking to meet. Part of her wanted to say no, to protect herself from getting hurt again. But another part of her was curious. Could this be the chance to finally have closure? To understand what happened all those years ago? "Okay," she said, her voice steady despite the storm of emotions inside. "Where do you want to meet? How about that cafe down the street from the airport? Same time tomorrow?" David suggested. Emma agreed, hanging up the phone with a mixture of excitement and anxiety. The next day, she found herself standing in front of the cafe, unsure of what to expect. She had dressed carefully, choosing a simple yet elegant outfit that made her feel confident. As she stepped inside, the familiar aroma of coffee and fresh pastries filled the air. She spotted David immediately. He was sitting by the window, his back straight and his posture confident, just like before. But there was something different about him now. He was more relaxed, more at ease in his own skin. As soon as he saw her, he stood up, a smile spreading across his face. "Emma," he said, his voice warm. "It's really good to see you." Emma felt a flutter in her chest at the sight of him. He had always had that effect on her, even when they were younger. She couldn't deny that the attraction was still there, even after all these years. "It's good to see you, too," she replied, sitting down across from him. For a moment, they just sat there, looking at each other, as if trying to figure out where to start. Finally, David spoke. "I owe you an apology," he said. "Back then, I was so focused on my own life and my ambitions that I didn't stop to think about how things would affect you. I never should have let you go without an explanation. I'm sorry, Emma. I've regretted it every day since." Emma was silent for a moment, processing his words. It had been so long since anyone had apologized to her, let alone him. She hadn't expected this kind of conversation. "I didn't expect you to come looking for me," she said quietly. "I don't know what to say." You don't have to say anything, David replied. I just wanted you to know how sorry I am. And I wanted to make it right, if you'll let me. Emma's heart was racing. Was he serious? Was this just some grand gesture, or did he truly mean what he was saying? She didn't know what to believe, but for the first time in a long time, she felt a glimmer of hope. She had been so focused on surviving, on taking care of Lily, that she had forgotten what it felt like to hope for something more. And now, here he was, asking for a second chance. Could it really be that simple? The days after that meeting with David felt like a blur for Emma. She went through the motions of her life, taking care of Lily, working long shifts at the diner, and trying to keep everything in balance. But her mind kept drifting back to that conversation. David's apology had stirred something deep inside her, something she hadn't allowed herself to feel in a long time, hope. Hope that maybe, just maybe, things could change. That maybe she wasn't stuck in this cycle forever. It was a feeling she hadn't experienced since before she had become a mother, before life had handed her the kind of challenges that made her feel like she was constantly treading water. Over the next few weeks, they met up a few more times. At first, it was awkward, the distance between them still palpable. They talked about their lives, their careers, their families. Emma learned that David had built a successful tech company, that he had made millions and traveled the world. He was everything she had imagined back then, but now he was a man with responsibilities, a man with a past, a man who seemed to regret the choices he had made. And then there was her. She had a daughter, a modest job, and a small apartment. She hadn't traveled, she hadn't pursued her dreams, but she had something that David didn't: simplicity, stability, and the kind of love only a mother could understand. Emma couldn't help but wonder if they were even in the same world anymore. She had told herself that she wouldn't expect too much from this second chance, that she wouldn't let herself get too close to him. But as time passed, she couldn't ignore the pull she felt whenever they were together. There was something there, something real, something familiar. It was a connection they had shared all those years ago, and it was still there now, buried beneath the years of separation, of missed opportunities. One evening, as they were sitting together in a small cafe near the city center, David reached across the table and took her hand. Emma looked at him, surprised by the tenderness in his touch. I know things are different now, he said softly, his voice full of sincerity. And I know I can't erase the past. But I want to be here for you, Emma. I want to make up for the time I lost, the time I wasted. Emma's heart raced, and she felt a mixture of emotions flood through her: uncertainty, hope, fear. She didn't know what to say. She had wanted to move on from her past, to focus on her future with Lily. But could she really ignore what was right in front of her? Could she walk away from the chance to reconnect with the man who had once meant everything to her? David, Emma hesitated, not sure how to express what she was feeling. She hadn't allowed herself to dream of this moment, of having a second chance with him. I don't know if I can go back to what we had, she said softly, her voice cracking slightly. I have a daughter now. My life is different. It's not just about me anymore. David squeezed her hand, his gaze never leaving hers. I know. And I'm not asking you to go back to what we had. I'm asking you to let me in, to let me be a part of your life again, if you'll let me. I don't want to complicate things, Emma. I just want to be there for you, for Lily. Emma felt a tear slip down her cheek. She wiped it away quickly, embarrassed. I don't want to hurt you again, she whispered, the words barely audible. I'm scared, David. Scared of making the wrong choice. David gently lifted her chin, forcing her to meet his gaze. You don't have to be scared, he said softly. I'm not going anywhere. I'm here for as long as you'll have me. Emma took a deep breath, feeling the weight of his words. For the first time in a long time, she allowed herself to believe in the possibility of a future where she wasn't alone, a future where love was something she could have again. It wasn't going to be easy, she knew that. But maybe, just maybe, it was worth it. Slowly, she nodded, a small smile tugging at her lips. Okay, she whispered. Okay. It wasn't a declaration of love, not yet. But it was a step toward something that felt real, something that felt like a chance for happiness. And for Emma, that was enough. The weeks that followed Emma's decision to take a chance with David were filled with a mix of emotions. They saw each other more frequently, slowly rebuilding the connection they had once shared. Emma was cautious, her heart guarded, but she couldn't deny the warmth that grew between them. David was patient, understanding, and always there when she needed him. He didn't push her, didn't rush her into anything. Instead, he let their bond grow naturally, as if he truly cared about her as a person, not just the past they shared. They went on simple dates, often spending time in quiet cafes, walking through the city, or watching movies at Emma's apartment. David was the perfect gentleman, always thoughtful and considerate. He would surprise her with small gestures, like bringing her favorite flowers or leaving little notes of encouragement. It was like he was trying to make up for the years they had lost, and Emma appreciated every moment of it, though she still couldn't shake the feeling that she was living in a dream. One evening, as they walked along the river near her apartment, Emma felt a shift in the air. The breeze was soft, the night sky clear, and the sound of the water lapping gently against the bank seemed to calm her restless heart. David turned to her, his face more serious than usual. "Emma," he said softly, his voice carrying a weight of emotion. "I know we're taking this slow, and I'm not in a hurry. But I need you to know something. I'm here for you. All of you. I'm not going anywhere." Emma stopped walking, her breath catching in her throat. She looked at him, searching his eyes for any sign of doubt. There was none. David was serious. He meant every word. "David," she began, unsure of how to respond. She had thought about this moment, about how it might feel to hear him say those words, but now that it was happening, she felt overwhelmed. She wasn't sure if she was ready to dive back into something so deep, so real. But as she looked into his eyes, she realized that maybe she had been ready all along. "I'm not sure I can give you everything you want," she said, her voice trembling slightly. "I have a daughter. My life is complicated. I can't just pick up where we left off." David took her hands in his touch warm and reassuring. "I'm not asking you to go back to what we had. I'm asking you to trust me. I want to be part of your life, Emma. And I want to be there for Lily, too. I'm not going anywhere. You don't have to be afraid." Emma closed her eyes for a moment, letting his words sink in. She had been afraid of making the wrong choice, afraid of repeating the mistakes of the past. But something in David's voice, in the sincerity of his gaze, made her believe in the possibility of a new beginning. Slowly, she opened her eyes and smiled. "Okay," she whispered. "I'll trust you." It wasn't a promise of forever, not yet, but it was a start. A step toward something new, something real. They stood there for a moment, the world around them fading into the background as they shared a quiet connection. And as they walked back toward her apartment, hand in hand, Emma felt a sense of peace that she hadn't felt in years. She didn't know what the future held, but for the first time in a long time, she was ready to find out. The following weeks were filled with small milestones. David spent more time with Lily, getting to know her, building a relationship with her. Emma watched from the sidelines, her heart swelling with a mixture of gratitude and disbelief. David was exactly what Lily needed, a strong, kind, and patient figure who treated her like his own. Emma could see the bond forming between them, and it filled her with hope for the future. She had always dreamed of giving Lily a father figure, someone who would love and care for her the way she deserved, but she had never imagined it would be David. As time passed, Emma found herself letting her guard down more and more. She allowed herself to believe in the possibility of happiness, in the possibility of love, something she had almost forgotten was real. It wasn't perfect, and there were still moments of doubt and fear, but with David by her side, Emma began to feel like she was truly moving forward. One evening, as they sat on the couch together, watching a movie with Lily nestled between them, David turned to Emma, his face soft and full of emotion. "I don't know what I did to deserve you," he said quietly, his voice low and sincere. "But I'm so glad you gave me a second chance. Emma smiled, her heart full. "I'm glad, too," she said softly, her voice filled with warmth. She leaned in to kiss him gently, a kiss that was filled with the promise of something new, something beautiful, and something worth fighting for. As the days passed, Emma began to feel a sense of normalcy return to her life. She had always been so focused on surviving, on managing the chaos of motherhood, work, and everything in between. But now, with David in her life, things were beginning to feel different. He was there for her in ways she had never imagined. He helped her with little things, fixing the leaky faucet in the kitchen, taking care of Lily when she had a late shift, and even bringing her favorite coffee on days when she was exhausted. Emma realized she was starting to rely on him, and that scared her. She had promised herself that she would never need anyone again, that she would be enough for herself and for Lily. But David was slowly proving her wrong, in the best way possible. One afternoon, as Emma and David sat in the park, watching Lily play on the swings, David turned to her with a serious expression. "I've been thinking," he said softly, his voice a little hesitant. "About us. About the future." Emma's heart skipped a beat. She had been trying not to think too far ahead, trying to stay in the moment. But hearing him bring it up made the future feel a little more real, a little more imminent. "What do you mean?" she asked, her voice steady, though her mind raced. "I know we've been taking it slow," he continued, his eyes searching hers, "but I can't help but imagine what life could be like with you, with Lily. I want to be a part of your future, Emma. I want to be there for you both, not just in the little moments, but in the big ones too. I want to build a life with you." Emma felt her breath catch in her throat. She had never allowed herself to imagine a future like that, not with David, not with anyone. She had always kept her walls up, believing that a happy, stable life was something she couldn't have. But now, as she looked at him, her heart swelled with emotion she didn't know how to process. "David, she started, her words faltering. She hadn't planned on this conversation. She hadn't expected him to speak so openly about the future, about their future. "I'm scared," she admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. "I'm scared of getting hurt, of things not working out. I've been through so much, and I don't know if I can trust that this is real." David reached out, gently taking her hand in his. "I understand," he said quietly. "I know you've been through a lot, and I don't want to rush you. I just want you to know that I'm here for you, no matter what. I'm not going anywhere, Emma." His words felt like a lifeline, like a promise, and for the first time in a long time, Emma felt like she could believe in something more, something better. As they sat there, watching Lily run around the park, David's words lingered in the air between them. Emma realized that, for the first time in years, she wasn't just surviving. She was living, really living. She was starting to believe in love again, in second chances, in the possibility of a future she had once thought was out of reach. Over the next few weeks, Emma and David grew even closer. They spent more time together, not just as a couple, but as a family. David became more involved in Lily's life, helping her with her homework, taking her to the park, and even helping with the school projects. Emma couldn't believe how natural it all felt. It was like they had been a family all along, and the years they had spent apart were just a distant memory. One evening, as they all sat around the dinner table, David turned to Emma, his face serious once again. "I've been thinking," he said, his voice low. "I know things have been moving quickly, but I want to ask you something." Emma's heart raced as she looked at him, unsure of what was coming. "What is it?" she asked, her voice tense with anticipation. David took a deep breath, his gaze never leaving hers. "Emma," he said softly, "I want to spend the rest of my life with you. I know we've had our ups and downs, but I'm ready. I'm ready for forever. Will you marry me?" The words hung in the air between them, and for a moment, everything stopped. Emma's heart skipped a beat, and she felt the tears welling up in her eyes. She hadn't expected this, not yet. She wasn't sure if she was ready to say yes, but she knew one thing for sure, she didn't want to let him go. Slowly, she reached for his hand, her fingers trembling. "Yes," she whispered, her voice filled with emotion. Yes, I will marry you. David's face lit up with the brightest smile, and Emma felt the weight of the moment settle over her. For the first time in years, she felt like everything was falling into place. It wasn't perfect, and there would still be challenges ahead, but with David by her side, she knew they could face anything. As they embraced, Emma felt a sense of peace wash over her. This was it, the beginning of a new chapter, a new life filled with love, hope, and the promise of a future they would build together. The days after David's proposal felt like a whirlwind. Emma couldn't quite believe it. She had said yes. She had said yes to a future she hadn't allowed herself to dream of, to a life that seemed so out of reach not long ago. There was still a part of her that hesitated, a voice deep inside her that reminded her of all the things she had been through, all the pain she had endured. But with each passing day, with each moment she spent with David, that voice grew quieter. They started planning their future together. They discussed where they would live, how they would blend their lives, their hopes, and their dreams. David was patient with her, always listening, always encouraging, making sure that Emma's voice was just as important in their plans as his. They found a small house on the edge of the city, a place with a large backyard where Lily could play, and Emma could finally have a space to call her own. David was excited about the idea of making it a home, and Emma was beginning to feel that excitement, too. She started to imagine a life with him, not just as a couple, but as a family. She knew that this was the moment when things were truly changing for her. But even with all the excitement, Emma couldn't shake the weight of her past. The baggage she had carried for so long was still there, lingering in the corners of her heart. She wasn't sure if she could completely let go of the fear, the doubts that had haunted her for years. But with David by her side, she started to believe that maybe, just maybe, she could. It wasn't easy. There were still moments when she doubted herself, when she questioned whether she deserved this kind of happiness. She had spent so long in survival mode that she wasn't sure how to let herself truly be happy. But David never gave up on her. He was there every step of the way, reminding her of her worth, showing her love in ways that made her feel seen, valued, and loved in return. One evening, as they sat together on the porch of their new home, watching the sun set over the horizon, Emma turned to David, her heart full. "I'm scared," she admitted quietly, her voice barely a whisper. Scared of everything changing, of getting hurt again, of being vulnerable. David reached over and took her hand in his touch warm and reassuring. "I understand," he said softly. "But you don't have to be scared anymore. I'm not going anywhere, Emma. I'm here for you, always. We're in this together." Emma felt the tears welling up in her eyes. She hadn't allowed herself to cry in a long time, but now, in this moment, with David by her side, she couldn't hold it in any longer. "Thank you," she whispered, her voice shaking. "Thank you for never giving up on me, for loving me through all my fears." David smiled, his eyes filled with warmth and love. "You don't have to thank me," he said gently. "I love you, Emma. And I always will." As they sat there in the fading light, Emma realized that this was the moment she had been waiting for. She had spent so many years afraid, so many years doubting herself, but now, with David, she felt like she was finally able to let go. For the first time in years, she felt free, free to love, free to hope, and free to believe that her future could be filled with happiness, love, and peace. Over the next few months, Emma and David's relationship continued to blossom. They continued to build their life together, step by step, making memories that would last a lifetime. Emma found herself laughing more, feeling lighter, and, most importantly, feeling like she was finally allowing herself to be happy. She and Lily had become a family with David, and she couldn't remember a time when she had ever felt so complete. David's love had changed her, had given her the strength to face the parts of herself she had buried for so long. He had shown her that love wasn't about perfection, it was about acceptance, trust, and understanding. And now, Emma was learning to love herself again, to accept that she deserved this happiness. One afternoon, as they were unpacking boxes in their new house, David pulled Emma aside, a mischievous smile on his face. "There's something I want to show you," he said, leading her outside. Emma followed him to the backyard, where Lily was playing with her new toys. David motioned to a small area of the yard, where a beautiful flower garden was beginning to take shape. "I thought we could plant something together," he said, his eyes twinkling. "Something that represents our new beginning, our new life." Emma smiled, her heart full. "I love it," she said, stepping forward to plant the first flower, a symbol of the life they were beginning to build together. In that moment, Emma knew that this was just the beginning of their journey. It wasn't going to be perfect, but it would be real, and it would be theirs. And as they stood there together, watching the sun dip below the horizon, Emma realized that she had finally found her place, her home, and her family. And for the first time in a long time, she was ready to embrace it all. As the months went by, Emma and David's life together continued to evolve in ways she had never imagined. They had settled into their new home, and the house had slowly begun to feel like a place where real memories were being made. David was everything she had hoped for and more. He was present, not just physically but emotionally, and he made her feel like the most important person in the world. Emma could feel herself changing in the best way possible. She had once believed that love wasn't something she could have, that happiness was for others, not for her. But David had shown her the kind of love she had always dreamed of but never thought she deserved. With him, she felt safe, loved, and supported, and for the first time, she allowed herself to truly believe that her past didn't define her future. One evening, as they sat together on the porch, the sun setting in the distance, David turned to her with a serious look on his face. "Emma," he said softly, his voice gentle. "I want to talk to you about something." Emma glanced at him, her heart skipping a beat. She had learned to trust him completely, but there was still that little voice in the back of her mind, always wondering when things might go wrong. But David's expression was calm, reassuring, and Emma knew he wasn't about to drop some bombshell. "What's on your mind?" she asked, her voice steady, though her curiosity was piqued. David took a deep breath and looked out over the yard, as if collecting his thoughts. "I know we've been through a lot, and I don't want to rush things. But I've been thinking about us, about the future." Emma waited for him to continue, her heart beginning to race slightly. David turned back to her, his eyes filled with warmth. "I know we've already made a commitment to each other," he said, his voice low and sincere. "But I think it's time to make things official. I want to spend the rest of my life with you, Emma. I want to build a family with you, one that's solid, one that we can be proud of. I want to be the father to Lily that she deserves." Emma's breath caught in her throat. For a moment, she couldn't speak. She hadn't expected this, not like this. Of course, she had imagined their future together, but hearing David say it out loud, hearing him express what was in his heart, took her by surprise. She had spent so much of her life doubting herself, doubting whether she could have the kind of family she had always wanted, but now, David was here, offering her everything she had ever hoped for. "David," she started, her voice thick with emotion. I don't know what to say." Her hands trembled slightly, unsure of how to process the emotions flooding through her. David reached over and took her hand in his, squeezing it gently. "You don't have to say anything," he said softly. "I just want you to know that I'm here for you, no matter what. I love you, and I love Lily. And I want to make this official. I want us to be a family." Emma felt the tears welling up in her eyes, but she quickly blinked them away. She wasn't sure if it was the weight of his words or the deep, genuine love she saw in his eyes, but something shifted inside her. This was it. This was the moment she had been waiting for. She had never thought she would be able to have this, a family, love, security. She had always been so focused on surviving, on keeping her head above water, that she had never allowed herself to dream of a life like this. But now, with David, she could see it. She could see a future full of love, laughter, and happiness. Slowly, she nodded, a small but meaningful smile tugging at her lips. "Yes," she whispered, her voice shaky but full of emotion. "Yes, I want that too. I want to build a life with you, David. I want us to be a family." David's face lit up with the most beautiful smile, and Emma felt her heart swell with love. It was a simple yes, but it meant everything. It meant that they were moving forward, together, building the future they both deserved. As they stood up and embraced, Emma felt a sense of peace wash over her. This was the beginning of something new, something real. It wasn't going to be perfect, and there would be challenges ahead, but she knew that as long as they were together, they could face anything. For the first time in a long time, Emma felt like she was exactly where she was meant to be, with the person she was meant to be with. David had become more than just a man she loved, he had become her partner, her equal, and the father Lily needed. And together, they were going to build a life filled with love, hope, and the kind of happiness that Emma had once thought was beyond her reach. In the weeks that followed Emma's agreement to build a life with David, everything started to feel like it was falling into place. They were no longer just dreaming about the future, they were actively shaping it, together. The house they had chosen, the one with the large backyard and the flower garden, began to feel like home. The walls were no longer just for corners with a roof, they were filled with laughter, with plans, and with the sounds of life being lived. Lily was thriving, her once quiet and uncertain steps towards trust now becoming confident, secure ones as she built a connection with David. He was everything a father should be, patient, kind, supportive, and present. Emma watched in awe as her daughter began to see David as the father figure she had longed for. And in turn, David was falling more in love with both of them, embracing not just the role of a partner to Emma but a father to Lily. It wasn't perfect, of course. There were still moments of uncertainty, moments when Emma's past would creep up on her, reminding her of the pain and heartache she had endured. But with each passing day, with every challenge they faced together, Emma felt more and more that she was letting go of the weight of her past. She had started to truly believe that she deserved happiness, that she deserved love, and that she could give love in return. One night, after a quiet dinner at home, as they sat on the couch together, Emma turned to David, her heart full. "David," she said, her voice soft, "I don't think I've ever truly thanked you. For everything. For being there, for showing me that love can be something safe, something real." David smiled and reached for her hand, his touch warm. "You don't have to thank me, Emma. I'm here because I want to be. I love you, and I love Lily. I want to spend my life with you both, helping you both build the future you deserve." Emma's eyes filled with tears. She hadn't expected this moment to feel so emotional, but it did. She had spent so much of her life on her own, fighting battles alone, that she had forgotten what it felt like to have someone there who truly cared. Someone who wasn't just there in the good times but was committed to staying through the tough ones, too. She leaned into David's embrace, feeling the warmth of his love surround her. For the first time in a long time, Emma allowed herself to truly feel at peace. She wasn't just surviving anymore, she was living, really living, with someone who loved her deeply, who wanted to build a life with her. Over the next few months, the life they were creating together continued to flourish. David and Emma talked more about their future plans, where they would travel, what they wanted for their family, how they could give back to the community that had supported them. Emma found herself growing more confident in her own dreams as well. She had always wanted to open a small art studio, a place where she could paint and teach others. She had put that dream aside when life had gotten too overwhelming, but now, with David's encouragement, she began to make it a reality. She found a small space in town and started working on getting it ready. It wasn't easy, and it was a big leap, but David supported her every step of the way. He helped her with the paperwork, helped her pick out the paint for the walls, and even put in a few extra hours to help her set everything up. "You're going to be amazing at this," he said to her one evening, as they worked together to hang a picture frame on the wall of her new studio. Emma smiled, feeling a surge of gratitude. "I never thought I could do this," she said softly. "But with you by my side, I'm starting to believe in myself again." David kissed her forehead. "You've always been capable, Emma. You just needed someone to remind you of that." And as Emma looked around her new studio, she realized that everything was falling into place. She was no longer the person who had to put her dreams on hold, who had to hide her desires for fear of failing. With David's love and support, she was finding the courage to chase her dreams, to believe in herself, and to build the life she had always wanted. It wasn't perfect, but it was real. And it was theirs. One evening, after the studio had opened and she had started teaching her first classes, Emma stood outside, looking up at the stars. She felt a sense of fulfillment, of peace, that she hadn't felt in years. Everything she had hoped for was coming true. She had a loving partner, a family, and the opportunity to follow her passions. Emma took a deep breath, feeling the cool night air on her face. This was her life now. And it was more than she had ever imagined. As the year passed, Emma felt as though she was living a dream. Every day was a new beginning, a new opportunity to embrace the life she had built with David and Lily. The struggles she had faced, the doubts she had carried, all seemed like distant memories now, fading into the background as she moved forward. She had found herself, not just as a mother, but as a woman who was capable of love, of dreams, and of creating a future filled with hope. Her art studio had grown into a vibrant space where she not only taught others but also found herself immersed in her passion. It was a place where she could lose herself in her creativity, where she could teach others to find their own voice, just as David had encouraged her to find hers. Lily was thriving, too. She had become a confident young girl, blossoming under the care of David, who had stepped into the role of father without hesitation. Emma could see the way Lily looked up to him, the way she had started to see him as a true father figure, something Emma had longed for her daughter to have. David was there for both of them, in every way possible. He had become her rock, the one constant in her life that she could always rely on. It was hard to believe that just a few years ago, she had been living in uncertainty, unsure of where her life was headed. Now, she had a family, a partner, and a future that seemed filled with endless possibilities. One evening, as they sat together in the living room, enjoying a quiet night in, Emma looked at David, her heart swelling with gratitude. "You know," she said, her voice soft, "I don't think I've ever truly thanked you for everything. For loving me, for loving Lily, for making this life possible." David smiled, his eyes warm with affection. "You don't have to thank me, Emma. I'm here because I want to be. I've never been more sure of anything in my life. You, Lily, this life, it's everything to me." Emma's eyes welled with tears, but they were tears of joy, tears of recognition of how far she had come. "I never thought I could have this," she said, her voice thick with emotion. "I never thought I could have a family, a real family, and now I do. I'm so grateful." David reached over, gently taking her hand in his. "We've both come a long way," he said quietly, "and we've built something beautiful together." Emma smiled, feeling the weight of his words sink deep into her heart. This was everything she had ever dreamed of, and it was real. It wasn't perfect, but it was theirs, and that was enough. As the days went on, Emma began to realize that the life she had now was everything she had ever needed. She wasn't just surviving anymore, she was living, truly living, with a sense of peace and fulfillment that she had never known before. And as for David, he had become more than just her partner. He had become her family, her home, and the person she knew would stand by her side through whatever came their way. Their love wasn't about perfection, but about the bond they shared, the trust they had built, and the life they were building together. One evening, as they sat on the porch watching the sunset, Emma leaned her head on David's shoulder, feeling completely content. "I never imagined life could be like this," she said softly, her voice filled with peace. "I never imagined I could be this happy." David kissed her forehead. Gently, his voice filled with love. "This is just the beginning, Emma," he said quietly. "We've got the rest of our lives ahead of us, and I'm excited for every moment." As they sat there, surrounded by the quiet beauty of their home and the peaceful evening sky, Emma knew that she had finally found her place, her purpose, and her family. It had taken time, it had taken patience, and it had taken love, but she was exactly where she was meant to be. And for the first time in years, she felt that everything was right in the world, just as it was meant to be. With David and Lily by her side, Emma knew that the future would be bright, full of love, joy, and endless possibilities. And for the first time in a long time, she allowed herself to believe that the best was yet to come.